Good afternoon and welcome to Resolutions for Recovery. This show is dedicated to empower and educate people regarding substance use disorder, whether you are a patient of the disease or whether you are a family member who is equally affected. We all need to come together as communities, speak about it. The shame and stigma must go away. We are losing an incredible amount of especially young people, and it is unacceptable in the greatest nation in the world. And I am going to encourage everyone here on Long Island and also across the great state of New York. The New York State Senate came forward the other day with some incredible legislation to be passed this session, and the session ends on June 21st, next Wednesday. Unfortunately, the New York State Assembly is not on board with any of the legislation, which I find a little hard to believe. So they can either come along with us and sponsor something, or during election time, we may have a little problem with them representing the citizens of the great state of New York. So I will put all the information that is needed, but we do need to call our Democratic Assembly people. If it is not on the Speaker of the House, Assemblyman Hasty, it's not a priority to him. Let's make sure that our delegation from Long Island area tells him it is a priority of all the people that live here on Long Island. So we are a huge population. Let's make our voices known. So that's my rant for today. However, I am sitting here with the beautiful and incredible Nora Milligan, who is a critical care nurse among many things that you are, a woman in long-term recovery, a mom, and very good mom, and the president of A2R Magazine. And we're going to get to that during the second half of the show, but we have some topics that we want to discuss today. So we've been really focusing on prevention because it's summer, and we all know what kids do in the summertime. It's part of I'm tired of hearing that it's part of being a kid. You know, being a kid means riding your bike and letting go of the handlebars, as far as I'm concerned. They do not need to engage in high-risk behavior that could lead them down a path of which they do not need to go.
It's great to be here. It's always great to come on your show and talk about, topics that I'm really passionate about because they impact my life on a daily basis.
I want to ask you though, because you are a critical care nurse, now marijuana is laced with fentanyl. So, I'm tired of hearing that illegal illicit drugs are now not good because they're tainted with another substance. They're not good, period. Right. And young children should not be engaging in smoking pot of any kind and or alcohol. Yeah. Alcohol is still the #1 killer in the United States.
Well, it's always interesting when I hear about a bad batch of heroin. Like there's a good batch of heroin.
I know. So, I have the same feeling.
So I think what we have to start to understand, and this is what comes, like you talk about shame and stigma. And shame and stigma drives the disease of addiction because we're not sharing information. Correct. So if we sit back and we wait for statistics to come in and data to catch up and tell us what's really going on out there, we're going to lose a lot more people before we figure out some of the bigger problems that are impacting, especially our youth right now. And that's so someone being in recovery like myself, and I'm also the parent of a young man who's struggled for recovery for many years. And I sponsor a lot of young women in programs, and so I'm kind of out there and on the front line of hearing the things that are up and coming. And the fentanyl, I think that a lot of people are miseducated about fentanyl. A lot of people still think it's pouring into this country, already mixed into the heroin, and that's really not the case. No. A lot of it's coming via the internet. So we've got like all these designer drugs, and a lot of people who might be at home watching right now, they think that fentanyl, mixed in heroin, that fentanyl is also a true class opiate, and it's really not. It's a synthetic. It's man-made. So I think some of these things, it's good that we're sharing information about that to educate, because education is important. Prevention education, and also sharing of education, so that we see the trends that are happening and we can start to alert each other. How Commissioner Sinney put out an uptick and a health alert the other day because we had like 22 overdoses in 48 hours. It's important to share this type of information.
It's
that's
very
going on.
important
Yeah.
to share, but I'm tired of being reactive to a situation.
Oh,
we need to
agreed.
be much more proactive.
Absolutely.
And, you know, that's why I stay passionate to doing the show, because people need to understand the dangers that are facing there. This is not, you know, if you're 40, 50 years old, this is not the same as when you were a kid.
Right.
It's just
It's
not.
not. And that's why I'm saying that
It's
we
a
have
whole
to start
different
to,
world.
we have to really start to be aware of the internet and what's coming across the internet. And these
And
drugs
what-
are coming
what
in from
kids
countries.
buy with those
Right.
lovely
So,
gift cards that
yes.
all family members say, I'll just get them a gift card because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
great for them.
Yeah, so a lot of this fentanyl is finding its way into the drug supply through the internet, through things that are being ordered off the internet. And you've got these, you know, the chemists out there that are putting this stuff together. I mean, we're living in a day and age where synthetics, and fentanyl is a type
Yes.
of synthetic, is an up and coming classification. Club drugs, you know, things where they just alter an element and you really don't know what you're getting.
One molecule.
Yeah, you really
That's
don't know
all
what you're getting.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's
And you
just
don't know how
really-
your body is going to process it.
Nope.
So, you know, there could be 10 kids.
Yeah.
And if one dies, does that make it, and 9 didn't, does that make it any less tragic?
No.
I think not.
Yeah. So we talk about, you know, prevention, and, you know, I always say this, I try to think back to when I first discovered that my son even had a problem. And like you said, I definitely had an attitude of, oh, he's just experimenting, it's just a phase, he'll outgrow it. And what I know now, you know, it's so easy, hindsight is so clear to us, but
Of
what
course.
I do know that it's okay for me to share that with other parents. It's just not okay today. I have that very relaxed attitude about kids experimenting because, like you said, it could just be one time. I mean, I wonder how many kids we've lost to an opiate overdose that weren't really even addicts.
Correct.
They hadn't even progressed to that point where they were someone with a substance use disorder. They used a few times, or they got hooked into it a little bit, and they were gone before we could even engage them in treatment or even see if they really had a real problem, a substance use disorder, or they were just, you know, trying to fit in, trying to be cool with their peers, or whatever
Exactly.
that
But
motive was for them to
the
use.
family and our young people need to be educated
Yes.
on the most addictive, powerful drug in the world.
Yes.
Is not something you experiment with.
Right. So
And why is
even-
that not being discussed
So-
anywhere?
So that's the prevention of it. And
Yeah.
you and I did the really great piece with Oasis, and I try to talk about that as much as possible. So that we did the kitchen table toolkit. It's available
It's
online.
New York State Office of Alcohol and Substance Abuse, New York State Oasis, and it's just Google Kitchen Toolkit New
Yep.
York State.
Or combat heroin.
Or combat, and you know, I know they changed that because when people heard combat heroin, they said, well, my kid doesn't have a problem with that. But excuse the name, go to all the videos. You did videos,
Yep.
I did videos, young people in recovery did videos. There's so much information there.
Yeah.
Plus PowerPoints.
Yeah, it's really there, and it's really designed to give people, to empower people to
Yes.
start a discussion
PAL leagues.
with their kids, and even
All-
the schools. They can download brochures. They can
Yes.
use the PowerPoint is right there. They can teach
For
with
every
it.
age
Yeah.
level.
Yeah, so
and there
it's-
is no time that is not early enough to start this discussion.
Definitely, yeah.
Because it's not necessarily going to be speaking about drugs and alcohol to a third grader, but you are going to talk about healthy decision making.
Right.
And coping skills.
Right.
And how would you handle this? And that's what we need to empower our young kids with.
So there's that other piece of something I would tell myself if I could go back, you know,
Yes.
years, and if I could do things differently. And I say this all the time. One of the biggest things I would do differently is I would just get them unplugged. These kids are plugged into social media, they're plugged into the internet, they're plugged into video games. These are alternate realities. They escape through
Yes.
this. They seek out the likes. This like stimulates the endorphins, the dopamines. It feels good. They look, you know, you get a like, you get a text, and you immediately
Yes.
feel comfort and ease. But it's not reality. It's
Yes.
it's
Plus, they have enough pressure on them,
Right.
being in early puberty or
Yep.
early teenage years, to fit in, to look like you're supposed to look, whatever that means.
Yeah.
So the more
yeah.
they see that and they're exposed to it,
Yeah,
they're
so
always feeling pressure to perform.
peer pressure today is with them 24/7. Imagine, you know, when I went to school, and I'm a little bit older, but when I went to school, you went to school and you had peer pressure within school, and then maybe a little bit when you were hanging out after school, but
Yes.
but when you went home, it got shut down.
It got shut
And
down.
it didn't
And
fall
you were
in these-
safe.
Right. So these kids are like 24/7, they're plugged in, and you know, I'm a critical care RN, and sometimes I get a younger person who needs to be on a ventilator. I work in an ICU level. And they'll be on a ventilator from maybe an asthma exacerbation, or sometimes they get overdose victims. I do get
Yes.
these kids. And so we get the tube out, and they're breathing on their own, and they're coming off sedation, and the first thing they want, it's not their family, it's not they want their phone.
Yeah.
Like, that speaks volumes to where this generation is. And even myself, I'm guilty of it. Like, I can be panicky if I can't get on that phone and see what's going on. I'm checking my
Yeah.
emails, I'm checking my Facebook, I'm looking, you know. So we're very plugged in, and we're very about instant gratification. Instantly I get a like and I feel better. And then
Yes.
we wonder why it's so easy for them to make the leap into a substance that does the same thing. Like
Yes.
an instant feel good, an
Instant
instant
feel-good.
connection, a social lubricant of some sorts, and that's where it goes. So again, if I could go back, and I would really encourage parents to get their kids unplugged, you know, spend time
Have
with
a
them, take them
central
outside, you know, do things
docking
with
system.
them. Yeah, like, and
Come
have
home,
time.
everyone,
Yeah.
including the parents.
Yeah.
Because a lot of young people that I have spoken to and have done some work with will say, I'd love to talk to my parents, but they're always on their phone.
This too. So the whole family can make
The whole
a
family.
contract, and
Yes.
you can have time, because I'm telling you, if you can't even find time to unplug your kid from social media, you are not going to unplug them from heroin.
No.
Not without help, you know, it's
No,
not going to happen.
you're not going to unplug
Yeah.
them from any substance
Exactly.
that starts
So-
to make them feel good. So yes, go outside.
Yeah.
It's summer. Lay on the grass and look at the stars. You know, there's all free programs, especially here on Long Island. Free music, free, you know, we're inundated with parks, which is a beautiful thing. This is our season. If there's any season to be a Long Islander, this is it.
Yeah.
So go to the beach.
Yep. Because and the time goes by so quickly that
Yes.
they're young, and that they're in a state where they'll even semi listen to you. And then
Correct.
once you get a substance use disorder in play, you know, they're not going to listen, you know, because the brain has a disorder that sends them into defiance, but to the extreme. You know, we
Yes.
know our normal teenagers are rebellious and defiant. And I think that was a lot of when I saw these behaviors come up in my son, I just dismissed it as regular teenage
years,
yeah,
sleeping
and
too much,
and it wasn't
defiance,
It wasn't. So
not
by the-
necessarily grooming and all
Yeah.
of that. You know,
So-
these are not teenage. They are normal teenage behaviors, but they're not normal
Right.
teenage behaviors. So
So-
you need to be.
By the time I figured out really what was going on, we were well beyond any
Yeah.
type of small, you know, correction of the problem. Like, he had to go to rehab. He went to his first rehab at 15.
Yeah.
So, and he was already full blown with a substance use disorder, already into opiates. I was really blindsided by
Yeah.
that. But grateful that it hit me so in the middle of the eyes, like it really hit me to where I couldn't maneuver into any sort of denial. It was right there. He actually had an appendicitis, and he had to have his appendix out. And the doctor came to me, they did a urine tox for the surgery, and the doctor came to me and said, I need to talk to you. He came up positive for everything in his urine, and I'm a nurse, and so I knew what that meant. And okay, so we're gonna we had actually already started, I knew there was some problems already. We'd been to see a counselor and do an intake, but I had no idea the degree of it. And then the doctor said to me after the surgery, we may have some problems with getting his pain under control, because if he's been misusing
Yeah.
opiates. And I was, there's no way that that's going to happen. And he came out of surgery and they could not get his pain under control with a lower dose of morphine, and they had to go to some higher doses of medication. So
crazy.
I knew at that time that he
How
was
bad it
well
was.
he was
Yeah.
well beyond a simple fix. And he went to his first inpatient stay and a 6-month treatment round. And you know, and it's been like any other disease. When you have a chronic disease on board in your family, this is a lifelong recovery
Battle.
process,
Yeah.
you know, and you have good days and you have not so good days, and you move 2 steps forward and you take 1 step back, and we both need a lot of support in that process. And there was a lot of gaps along the way, and that's why I like to come out and talk on shows like this and write. And a big thing, you know, a big reason why I wanted to start the magazine, to start to really tell the truth of my experiences and where these gaps are in the continuity of care from treatment. You know, you can send someone away and give them the most amazing 5-star inpatient treatment,
Right.
but if you don't follow it up with the correct connection and the correct making sure they get from point A to point B, they're going to fall.
Safely.
They're just going
They
to fall
fall- they
right,
fall through the
right out the
crack.
and
Because
if you're
the
not
disease is
providing,
so
yeah,
powerful,
very.
very powerful disease, and it speaks all 24/7 in their minds.
Yeah,
That they're
so-
not worthy. So when those, you know, when things don't go smoothly, which things normally don't go smoothly, and you may not get into treatment right away, that gap does kill people.
Yes.
Because the disease is speaking to the patient. See, I told you you weren't worthy of it.
Well, we're-
See, I told you.
And we're creating some situations.
Yeah, we
you know,
are,
it-
absolutely
It's an
creating.
interesting phenomenon that we will identify a problem, we'll go after it, we'll advocate, we'll educate for it, and then they'll create the legislation that kind of takes care of the problem. And then through that action, we create another problem. We did it with iStop. We
Yes.
created iStop. We tightened up the reins on opiate prescribing, and as a result of that, it was more difficult to get opiates out on the street and
You
get
couldn't doctor
prescriptions.
shop anymore.
Right. So we saw the heroin epidemic just go boom, like
Yeah.
blow up because, so it was kind of like an unforeseen reaction to
Yes.
a great action. And it was a necessary step. We had to take that step, but now you've got another situation. So it's kind of like the same thing is happening now in the sense that we did all this advocating for treatment on demand.
Yes.
And we did a great job, and we're getting some treatment on demand now. We're getting
14 days.
Right, 14 days and the detox, which is really important. So now that we're seeing that, so we're engaging more people in recovery.
Yes.
So when you engage more people in recovery and they move through a 14-day program, think about that. So you're in your detox for 3 to 5 days and you're in treatment for 14. We hope they're still getting 28. I mean, it's
Yes.
not about just give 14. The
14
thought-
days does not cure
the
heroin addiction.
The 14 days is there to get them in the door, and then hopefully
Yes.
we can,
Maintain.
show the insurance company still there's a medical necessity there, and we can get them the full 28 days that they say they're supposed to get on your insurance plan. So, but most of them aren't getting it. But anyway, so you're engaging a lot more people now. So you have a 14-day program, 14 days of treatment, and then a lot more of them are coming out, and they're moving into a system of outpatient that's inundated now.
But even coming through a program for 14 days does not allow the family also to get engaged. You can't transplant someone on a new road of recovery back to a dysfunctional family.
Right.
The family has been affected.
Right.
Whether they realize it or they don't realize it. They need to be surrounded by peers who are in recovery, walking the same path that
Yes.
they're walking. Well, everyone gets well together.
Right.
Unfortunately, there are a lot of people that can't go home because of dysfunction at home or because of substance abuse at home, that maybe there's more than one patient in that home.
Right.
Or
it's just not healthy.
It's just not healthy.
After a certain period of time, I mean, my son turned 19, 20, it wasn't healthy anymore to bring him home,
Right.
And so we had to look for alternative housing opportunities for him. And this was going back, he's 25 now, so say 6 years ago. So now here's the other thing that we've done. Again, we fix one problem and we create another. So we've had this big push for medication-assisted therapy.
Yes.
So we're sending people to detox. Some of the hospitals are even discharging people on a Suboxone taper. And where are they living? Excuse me? Where are they living? My
Yeah.
son went to the hospital when he was 19 years old and they induced him on Suboxone. Great. I mean, that's great. Let's do some medication-assisted therapy. Let's get him some treatment and some
Suboxone,
recovery.
for everybody who doesn't know what that is really, it takes the place of, so the horrific withdrawal from opiates is not as severe.
Right.
Right? So it also helps with blood pressure, with all those horrible symptoms of withdrawal.
Right. And I mean, it's a controversial topic that we wouldn't even have time to cover in this show.
No,
but the bottom line is that, you
But
can't.
the path to recovery, here's what I will say. The path to recovery, whatever the path is for each individual person, needs to be just that.
Right. So you engage
can't-
them where they're at.
Right.
You engage them where
That's
they're
all.
at. And if you want to engage a brain in a recovery process, I'm a person in long-term recovery. I had a recovery process. For me to even begin It's a psychological rearrangement. It's physical, it's emotional, and it's spiritual. So I have to get the physical part okay.
Yes.
I have to feel okay physically before I can open my mind to accept,
Absolutely.
a psychological rearrangement. So if someone's in withdrawals or they're so uncomfortable, that's not going to happen. So if we get them on a medication-assisted therapy and we engage them in a recovery process, my experience is that most of them want to come off the medication-assisted therapy in their time. Let's give it
Correct.
their time, because when we push these things and we make it our time and we hurry it along, that's when people relapse and they die. So that's all I'll say about medication-assisted therapy. It has its place and it has its purposes, and
Absolutely.
my son was on it, and that was fine for that moment, but then it rendered him homeless.
Yes.
Because he couldn't engage any type of recovery housing. I'm happy to say that today now we do have some recovery homes that will take people on medication-assisted therapy. Sadly, it's not enough. We need
Correct.
more, because if we keep pushing the agenda of getting people on medication-assisted therapy, we have to push the agenda of creating safe recovery housing for them
Yes.
to live in. We have to create safe recovery housing.
Period. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's
so,
a big struggle.
When you come out of a rehabilitation center, you do need a place to go that you can be surrounded again, have responsibilities, have chores, and work on your recovery every single day. That's your job.
Real life.
That's your job.
Yeah. So my son always did great when he went away to treatment. He went away to long-term programs, TCs, therapeutic communities. He'd live in those four walls and he'd do great. And then you send him home. They tell you when to get up. They tell you when to brush your teeth. They tell you when to go to group. They do your everything.
And they prepare your food. Your laundry is done.
Yeah. So
everything
need
is beautiful.
safe recovery housing where they can learn to live their life and face
Correct.
challenges. Like if you have a bad day, your girlfriend broke up with you didn't get the job that you wanted, and you have to be able to go back to a safe recovery support system and process those things without picking up. And so the extra added structure of urine testing, of having chores in the house, like you said, structure, having accountability, where you're going, you have to make sure that you're making meetings. So that being said, again, we passed all these great laws, and so we're engaging more people than ever in an initial treatment process. And treatment and recovery are two different things. Treatment is more clinical and medical, and you get your behavior modifications there. You get treatment if you've had trauma and things like that. Recovery is more peer-based.
Yes.
So I'm in recovery, I help you in recovery, and whatever that looks like for you, if it's a fellowship type meeting. So we have more people than ever that are engaged in the process, which is the good news.
Yes,
the bad
that
news
is the good
is that
news.
we don't have enough safe recovery homes to
And there are
to
some
meet
very
to
bad
meet the demand.
recovery
and then,
homes.
And that's what you have now.
Yeah.
You have a platform or a landscape that's just very ready to very fertile for predators. So then you've got people out there that are overcrowding. You've got people that are taking advantage
It's
of a
a
very vulnerable
money-making-
population, especially the women.
Yes.
And it's just infuriating. It really is.
It's a money-making proposition, and the people that are running, not all of the homes, but too many of the homes do not care about their population. They care about their rent roll, and
the
that's
money.
all they care about.
So we talking about legislation that just keeps getting dropped and pushed to the side. I can't say it, and we really need some oversight here.
We need
some
oversight, and I
regulation.
think that's the biggest hindrance right now is who would do the oversight, because every government agency is going to tell you that they're overburdened and understaffed and all of those things. But does that make it any less necessary? No, it does not.
No.
And
Because
human life is involved.
Yeah.
This is human life. So we can't put that off to the side.
Nope,
We can't anymore.
Yeah. And for people that might be thinking, well, this doesn't impact me, it doesn't affect me, none of my loved ones have a problem, but it impacts all of us through taxpayer dollars, because this is your money, the taxpayer dollars that are going to fund these houses. So there should be oversight.
There should be oversight.
Yeah. Not only that, you increase the rate of relapse and even recidivism for people coming out of incarceration. If you don't provide some sort of re-entry program for them, peer supported, most importantly, they're going to relapse. It's a no-brainer. And then they're going to go back into a higher level of care if they survive, because many of them we know are not even surviving. And then what you've done is you've taken a few days of detox, 14 days of treatment, and you send them back into a high-risk area. All you've done is sign their death warrant, Because in
Correct.
14 days, you've lowered their tolerance enough that if they go back and use now, you're probably going to bury them.
Yes.
And we sit back and we wonder why we have the highest rate of overdoses in Suffolk County. Well, that's kind of a no-brainer as
Yeah,
well. You know,
absolutely.
So we have to really look at the community supports. We've opened the new Recovery Community Outreach Center, Thrive,
Hauppauge.
which is amazing, just to get visual and to be present in our community and give people
And
a place
support.
to go, have
Yes.
support, have fellowship. It's amazing.
And it's a fun place to go.
It's amazing. I'm so
Yeah.
grateful to be a part of that. I sit on the advisory committee for that, and I'm beyond thrilled to be part of something that's so amazing.
We have one, though.
Yeah, we need more. I was just gonna say that we should
on
be
a
the
very
first.
long
Yeah.
island. You
Yeah.
know, and we had a problem getting that space
Mm-hmm.
because landlords didn't want those people there. Those people are your fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, grandparents. They're anyone in any walk of life can be stricken with that disease. And we need to let that go. We need to really let that go, because all those people, when supported and really achieving recovery, we don't know what to expect from them, what they can accomplish in their lives.
Well-
And that's the thing that communities need to see.
Yeah, and that's another part. I mean, the magazine that we created has several platforms that are of importance to us, and especially being a woman in long-term recovery, that's exactly what I want to hit on, is telling the stories. I mean, I can't tell you, I'm sure you've had this experience. I'll get called up by a news station and they want to do a story on something, and they sit with me and they interview me for 2 hours, and then they do their story and they'll take 10 seconds of
yeah.
something I said completely out of context to sell their story, and it's all sensationalism.
Correct.
Instead of telling like the other side of the
Absolutely.
story, which is the good side, the side that people do recover and we go on to
Yes.
live these great lives, and it's not about all the horrible things. We don't have to focus so much
We shouldn't be
on that.
focusing
Exactly.
on just the horrible
Yeah.
things. We need to open the world up.
Right.
Unfortunately, I had the worst that could ever happen to a family.
Yes.
But there is the other side of it. People do recover, and I embrace that every single day.
Me too.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about that. So the new magazine is going to have stories of hope, stories of recovery. My story kicked off the first issue, but I'm very excited to get to the next issue and stop looking at my
So we're
face
gonna-
on that.
We'll be right back after this message, and we're going to be bringing Donna DiBiase, who is the founder of A2R, and we'll have an open discussion about the magazine, which should be out next week,
Yep.
the second issue.
Very exciting.
We'll be right back.
First you stole prescription pills from your mom. You threw back a few, and then they were gone. So you're jonesing real bad, yeah, you need some more. So you call a shady guy and say you're looking to score. And that's how you got addicted to heroin. He came over quick, said he got something new. For just $10 you snort or chew. Said just one time and then you'd be fine. But soon you OD'd and now you're dying. And that's how you got addicted to heroin. And that's how you OD'd on heroin.
Yeah, this will make all those bad feelings go away.
I always make things better. I'm like the best friend who's always there.
You know that isn't helping you. What are you talking about?
Don't listen to him. Who's your friend?
He'll be your only friend if you keep that up. But she left me because they left me because
They left you, but I didn't. Is that a friendship or what?
he's the reason they left you, Mark. He didn't want to go anywhere anymore. He just wanted to sit at home and get high.
Don't listen to him, Mark. You're just hallucinating.
And why are you hallucinating? Are you telling me you'd rather isolate yourself in this drug-induced dreamland? Why?
Mark, don't do it. You need
The
me.
only thing you need is you, Mark. The longer you sit at home and shove those things down your throat, the further you slip away from everything.
Mark!
You don't own me.
I'm
I'm not a drug addict. I am not in denial. I am in control.
Are you really in control? Help is one call away.
Welcome back to Resolutions for Recovery, and we are now joined by Donna DiBiase.
Hello.
Okay, so Donna.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So the new magazine is going to come out next week, the second issue.
Second issue, we are.
And why do we even have the first issue?
I'll tell you how this whole thing came about. I was with a family, and they
Had a problem?
yes, had a problem, and I drove them somewhere to a facility and just had them do an intake, and was locally in the neighborhood, and I'm sitting in the waiting area, and there was some old brochures and looking for something to read, and I said, there's really nothing here. There's nothing here for someone to read, for help. And then that was basically it. It just sparked an idea in my head that I wanted to create something where people could basically use as a Bible for resources, but also to become educated and empowered and tell stories. And here we are. Here we are. And also another thing was I remember when News 12 did the Heroin Diaries.
Yes.
And, when they aired the whole segments, and then you would have to go online and look again, I felt there needed to be more out there. There needed to be more in the media, more in the public, more resources. And then your show came about, and, which is amazing. And now the magazine. So, yeah.
So it is always sensationalism with the news stories, and they don't run enough stories about recovery. It's always, as a matter of fact, I do remember in my own community, parents, father died to overdose, mother, I don't know what her outcome really was, but their two children found them, and then did a whole interview, and then was told, well, we're not going to run the interview because we don't know if it was heroin or opiates or not. Does that make it any less tragic? It was substance use disorder.
Right.
But they're
So
about ratings. That's
that's exactly
that's
it. That doesn't mean it's not going on with your neighbor,
Right.
with your community, with your
Exactly.
teachers.
Yeah.
I mean, we had out in Sag Harbor a kindergarten teacher that died to overdose. I mean, really?
Yeah.
Bus drivers, how many stories have to come forward before people in their own community say, wow, there's way too many people affected by this disease.
Way too
And
many.
again, I appreciate it because when I was going through my own struggles, you have no idea where to turn. None. And I really am never going to talk to a recording. When you're in crisis, you need human interaction. We all need human interaction, which goes back to disconnect yourselves from social
Exactly.
media and your phone.
Exactly. And then I also feel too there could be that individual, or there could be that family that maybe they're not ready to come out. So, by luck, if this magazine gets into their hand, I know that there will be a story in there that will,
Touch their heart.
Right. That exactly will. So that's again that's
Or a
another
resource card that says, okay, I have a
We're
lot
very
of numbers I
proud.
can call.
We're extremely proud of.
And the resource guide, I mean, going back to my own experience when I first discovered that my son had a problem and I needed to get him help, I did what a lot of us do. I sat down at the computer.
Yes.
And I Googled, and I was just inundated. So not only are we
And then you're
overwhelmed,
frozen.
we're overwhelmed with too much information. We also have some practices out there that are stealing links, and you're calling, and you think you're calling a New York State-based treatment center and you're actually talking to someone in Florida, and then they engage you, but you're so desperate, okay, I'll send them to Florida. And we all
Exactly.
know that cannot always have a good outcome. There are good treatment centers in Florida, but there's a lot of problems down there too. So in other words, if we create a resource guide and we put it right in your hands, and the way we've created it is, show the different levels of care and explain what each level of care was. I didn't understand this stuff when I was going through it. Just because I worked in a hospital and I was a nurse and I worked in the medical field, I had no idea about the difference between a detox level, intensive residential, acute care, community residential, safe supportive living. I didn't understand any of that. And so when my son was denied an acute level stay at 28 days, I didn't realize that he could go to an intensive residential program. I didn't understand that.
No, and nobody helps you navigate that.
Nobody does. So we've made, we've really put the hotlines out there for LICAT and Oasis.
Yes,
so that people
and you
can
need
get a
to
live
know
person.
what you're entitled to, and you need to know what to ask for.
Yeah. So, and all that information is on Oasis. They've done some really great videos that explain the levels of care.
Yes.
And they have an advocacy hotline. If you're turned away or you feel that you haven't received treatment fairly, then you can call the advocacy line. You cannot be turned away from an Oasis facility because you don't have money or you don't have insurance. They have to work with you.
So in New York State, you have to have a license from Oasis to do business in New York State. So, that's first and foremost. So if you ask a treatment facility for their license and they say, don't worry about that, leave.
Right.
You can go to the website too and find, you don't have to have a place in your own backyard either.
Yeah.
New York State's a pretty big state.
Yeah. So if you
It's
want
beautiful
to get them away for triggers, like I sent my son to a treatment program upstate,
Yes.
he did really well there. So that's one aspect of the magazine. There's many. It's a multi-level platform, and I was thinking back to before we did the first recovery walk with FIST.
Yes.
And I'm a really proud member of FIST, Families in Supportive Treatment. And we have been talking, Anthony Rizzuto, the founder of FIST, we have been talking about the great rally they do down in Washington, D.C., the Fed Up rally. And I said, well, why don't we do one here? We need to do one here on Long Island. And so we all got together and we worked that out. And you were part of that. A lot of great people really part of that.
We're on our third walk. It's in September.
September. And Anthony asked me to say a few words at the walk. And when I got there and I saw the amount of people that had gathered, and I knew all these people that were there, and so myself, I'm a critical care RN, I'm a parent of a young man in recovery, and I'm a person in recovery. These three entities that are always in my head. And for the first time ever, as I was standing at this walk and looking out in the crowd and I was about to speak, I saw that all those entities were there.
Yes.
And it hit me like, this is what we have to have, these partnerships. So addiction, substance use disorders thrive in disconnect.
Yes.
Disconnect, lack of information, I'm home in the dark, I don't want to talk about it, the shame, the stigma. And so we really, like A to R Addiction to Recovery magazine is about connection at the core. So bringing all those platforms into the magazine, having our medical experts write for us so that you get education and empowerment, having people in recovery tell their stories from addiction to recovery to bring hope, and then also honoring those that we've lost because their lives do matter.
Their lives do matter.
Absolutely. So we want to honor them.
My son will come after you if you know that. He's always around. That is without a doubt.
And there's many components. Many components.
But there also needs to be a community
advocacy, veterans, suicide.
Suicide for parents who have lost. They need to have a common.
These are and these are topics that will be covered in every single issue. Veterans, suicide, advocacy. So.
Yeah. And what's great is if one article draws you in because it speaks to you, but then you're in there, so you're going to read the other articles, and it just begins to get everybody in the same connection, so that we begin to understand it from the medical point of view. We begin to understand it from a little bit more the person that's actually using the substances, what they went through and what their life was like and what it's like today. And we love to highlight some of the younger people and some of their issues that are particular to a young person population, the peers and the need to have fun and think their life is over,
Because they can never have a drink or a substance again, and their lives are far from over. But who do they connect with? Yeah. So putting them all together. Young people in recovery, that's a new club that really, within the last 5 years, has been established. You need
Coalitions as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we're
Coalitions as well.
coalitions are included. You know, that whole thing in the community, early education.
Early education. And you know, we'll make a little plea right now that you should support your local coalition, and your community
Absolutely.
probably has one.
Yeah.
And if you need education in your school, then you better go show up at your school board meeting and demand it in your
Exactly.
school district. You know, we all wait for somebody else to do it. Don't wait. Gather your peeps together and go and do it.
There's wonderful coalitions that,
Yeah.
that are out there.
So we want to support them all, and again, so another component is really giving a media outlet to our non-for-profits, to our recovery community that's not, you know, geared towards sensationalism. It's about telling the other side that
And where
you know,
to
we
find good treatment.
Exactly. So it's you can find us on Facebook right now.
Yes.
You know, A to R Addiction to Recovery magazine on Facebook. We update all the community events every Monday and Thursday, so you can just pop on there and see what's going
What's going on
Yeah,
on
we've
Long
got-
Island.
Yeah, we've got like
Yes.
Bobby Hartman's doing his
Golf
Main Street
outing.
golf
Yeah.
outing on Monday. We've got the walk coming up
In September.
We've just got a lot of things. The Thrive has a bowl-a-thon going on.
Oh,
They have
yes.
an art thing going on.
Yes.
You can get onto Thrive. Long Island LIThrive.org, I think it is.
Yes, but they're on Facebook just as Thrive.
So okay,
Yeah.
so you know, yeah. So
And we
so
also
just wanna-
added this issue moving forward is a tremendous calendar of
Yeah.
events.
Yes.
So it's giving months in advance, and it's, you know, it's terrific.
And there's a lot of fun things. I know last Saturday,
things.
Terry Kroll had a
I was
wellness
there.
day at
Yeah,
Tanner
it was
Park.
wonderful.
These are important things to, you know, they're free, they're fun, and bring your families there because
Oh, yeah.
children, they're never too young to hear different words.
Exactly, and it was a beautiful
and to
week.
answer very simple questions.
It was a beautiful weekend. I know the day before, Lindy Community Cares had the color run.
Yes.
There was over 700 people who registered for this run. It was amazing. It was exciting. And then, you know, the very next day at Tanner Park with Copay Community Cares.
Yes.
And it's wonderful to see, you know, to see all these people come about. And we had a table set up there, and we handed out, you know, some magazines and information. And there were so many people who came over to the table and took the magazine. There was a woman I spoke to who was visiting from North Carolina, who 2 of her children are suffering from the disease, you know, and she was like, this is amazing. She says, you know, we exchanged numbers, so.
It's being well received, and I
Yes.
think of all the places we've gotten it, just really well received. We've gotten it into treatment centers, into the colleges, into DSS, into the jails, and it's getting where it needs to go to impact people. But one of the places that I'm really excited, we've been so well received by Suffolk Community College.
Yes.
And
Awesome.
I can say to you, being a person, you know, I'm back in school for my master's degree, and I'm taking whatever classes I can as far as electives. I take them in the field of substance use disorders. So it's always a little disappointing when I get into these classes and there's really not great material. There's really not, it's very outdated, and it's just frustrating. So I'm so excited that they're actually using our magazine to
That's
teach
awesome.
In their
case.
curriculum.
I was so blown away by that. It's really amazing telling the students to go home and read it from cover to cover and come back and talk about how
An
it's
assignment. There's an
Thomas's
assignment that's
video is in part of their curriculum.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So, you know, it's
right.
crazy. It is.
I'm just super excited about that.
Because
But,
people
like,
need to hear,
Yeah.
you know, there's no greater teacher than real life.
Exactly.
Real life
So
scenarios.
Our next issue, we are so excited. Like, to sneak peek at, we have John Schinholzer with the McShin Foundation, and how they're partnering with the Chesterfield County Jail down in Richmond, and they have a whole program that created the HARP. They created the HARP program, Heroin Addiction Recovery Program. And then our
And
covers-
I want to stop you there because here on Long Island, we just arrested people that really, you know, when you read about robberies that are for $300, $400, $500, those are people struggling with substance use disorder that are desperate to get their next fix. And I can't make desperate a big enough word for that statement. But also, let's just talk about, you know, if you think it's not happening in your community, cars don't crash into houses. Cars don't go suddenly out of control. You know, you may think you don't have a problem and you don't know what's going to happen to you when you leave your home in your car. You know, here on the LIE, we take our lives in our own hand anyway, but,
Right.
you know, open your eyes, open your ears, and get educated on that.
Yeah. So I mean, we know that substance use disorders left untreated in our community like increase crime. This is a no-brainer. So
They're going to get well, they're
Right.
going to go to jail, or they're going to be dead.
So it's, you know, so we're doing this whole piece. The whole next issue is really focused on addiction and incarceration and what the solutions are and what the solutions are not and have not been for a year. The war on drugs, and it's failing miserably. And the statistics are out there to
You know,
clearly
there
support
are-
it with the amount of tax dollars that we're spending.
Yes.
So having these programs like HARP, and I'm happy to say and very excited to say we sat with Sheriff DeMarco, and they just kicked off the opening of their brand new Sheriff
Yeah.
Addiction Recovery Program. So we're really excited that,
Yes,
that
because
they've got that going on.
you know, that doesn't mean just because you have a substance use disorder, it doesn't mean you can't face the consequences of all your
course,
actions.
of course.
And as well you should, especially if your crimes are egregious enough to warrant that.
Right.
But while you're in jail, why not make you well?
Exactly. If
So
you
that
go
you
to
can
jail
come
and you-
out and be a productive member of society.
If you go to jail and you suffer from diabetes, they're going to treat your diabetes while you're in jail.
Absolutely.
So if you go to jail, no one's saying that people should get out of free jail card and not face the
Absolutely.
consequences of their actions while they are breaking the law. It's not what we're saying, but like identifying people who have those actions because of a substance use disorder, it's a win-win situation to treat those people while they're incarcerated. Not only that, you have them in a space where they
Yeah.
can't really go anywhere, so they gotta kind of
Yeah.
like listen. And at least you get them engaged in some sort of process, and then when they leave,
They want to be engaged
Exactly.
in some
Most
sort
of
of
them
process.
do. Not
Most
all
of them, not
Most
all
of them do. But you're engaging them, and you're increasing their chances of connecting with recovery. And again, reentry has to involve peers. It has to involve the community. I mean, one of the most beautiful things about the HARP program is the community is so involved. They give the people jobs when they come out.
Yeah.
They've really gotten visible out in their community. And like you said, I mean, we tried to find a building for Thrive, and we were met with all this stigma and shame. And
Yes.
but the more we get out in the community and show people, the less scary it is
That we're not those
right,
people.
Right. And so even
You know?
with the media sensationalism, NBC News 4 approached me a while back about doing a story on the sober houses, just what we were talking about, the recovery homes. And they wanted to do a story on the bad recovery homes and what was going on with them. And I said, okay, you know, I'll help you do that if you'll also tell a story about the recovery homes that are doing it right. And they did. They still did a couple things that I was not real happy with, but they told the story of a good recovery home, because when we're only telling the side of the bad recovery homes, you're just driving that stigma in the community,
Yes.
and then they don't want the homes
Yes.
in their name, because all they know is that people commit crimes there and overdose there, and
Yes.
it's all bad. But we have really amazing recovery homes out
do.
there that are doing it right, and
Absolutely.
they're present in their community, and they work with their community. I know Mainstream helps the guys get
Yes.
jobs in the
Yeah.
community. You know, you have New Hope Rising; they're doing amazing things with their residents as well. And I see some really great improvements going on. So we're very excited about our publication and what it brings and what it's going to keep on bringing as it evolves. It keeps evolving, and so we're super excited that the next issue is touching on. We did an interview with Police Commissioner Sinney. And you know, what a blessing he's been to our community. Talk about just as a workhorse. He's out there, and you know, he's not just out there like cleaning up. He really cares. You see him out in the
really
community.
cares.
He really
He
shows
really
up.
cares.
We had an amazing
You know, and
interview
I'm
with
not,
him, and
you know, I know he's going to run for district
know.
attorney. And I had a conversation with him
he
about
better
that.
train his
I
replacement
know,
really good and let him know
yeah.
that Nora and Donna are going to be like
Absolutely.
watching. We're going to be on him,
Absolutely.
whoever that's going to be. But we're just excited to see the connection again. Like we've got
Yes.
to connect, and even law
Because
enforcement is a piece
we're
of that.
never
Medical and it's all a piece of it. It
We
has to
can't
come
legislate
together.
our way out of this. We can't arrest our way out of it. It needs to be an entire holistic approach. It needs to encompass everything. The religious communities, you know, finally they're getting on board.
Yes, they are.
But
Yeah.
they're you
Yes,
know,
they
they're
are.
a little late to the party, you know, and let's face it, they've been hearing
Right.
confessions and everything else, and you know, but let's just keep that our dirty little secret. Enough with the dirty little secrets, because not one more person should pass to this disease. Not one more. Period. End of conversation. Especially when we're talking about young people. And I always go back to remembering writing my first op-ed and reading the comments. And I mentally prepared myself, emotionally, mentally, and to have people say, well, good, at least that junkie's dead. He deserved to die. My 21-year-old son did not deserve to die, nor does anybody else's child deserve to die. So that's ignorance, and it kind of fueled me in a good way. Could have buried me, but kind of pisses me off. So the shame and stigma is just that, shame and stigma.
It's got to go. It's
got to go.
Yeah. And again, so, that's really our vision, is to start telling the other side, And
Yes.
there's a lot of great entities that already, this wasn't an original idea of ours. There's a lot of great entities out there that are already out there telling great recovery stories, Facing Addiction, the Anonymous
Yes.
people. I mean, they started basically a revolution. Like, I look up to them and the language that I needed to come out in the public.
I
and
am
start
not
talking,
anonymous.
Exactly.
Right.
Start
Right.
talking about my recovery with language that still protects the traditions of whatever, type of recovery I choose, but to come out and to be able to speak at the level of press and radio as a free woman in recovery and talk about what that means and what that looks like for me is amazing. And it definitely can inspire others. When I went in down to the HEART program, and I spoke to the women in the jail down there, and we were talking a little bit about some of the programs they'd encountered growing up, the DARE programs and whatnot. And I asked all of them to raise their hand. I said, how many of you have been in treatment before, been incarcerated before? 100% went up in the air. And so I said, okay, do you feel like this is different? Yes. Well, what's different about it? And this one young woman shared with me how she had heard someone tell their story who had been right where she had been in jail, incarcerated, and now was living this life of recovery. And she identified with that, and she was inspired.
Yes.
That's the word. That's what we do for each other. That's what peer work does. It's inspirational.
Yes.
Because I'm telling you, growing up in substances began to impact my life at the age of 13 years old. I got a lot of solutions from a lot of people. I had judges telling me what to do. I had parents telling me what to do. I had teachers telling me what to do. They were all telling me what the solution was, but I didn't identify
hear
with
them.
any of them. Well,
Right.
I couldn't hear them, and I didn't want to hear them because I
Correct.
didn't think that they understood me. But when I finally was engaged in a recovery process with someone who was just like me and been through the things I had been through, and then they were well, I got that vital component, which is hope.
And you were ready.
Yeah.
Let's add that into the student appears
Yeah.
when they're willing, and
Yep.
sometimes, unfortunately, I have a lot of kids that have heard at that moment in time they were ready, whatever resonated with them. It resonated with them. But the more we speak about it, the more that's going to resonate.
Yeah, because you don't know when that moment, and these
You
moments,
never know and they're fleeting.
And that's it. My experiences is that moment will come and it will go.
The window opens and the window slams right back shut.
I had moments of clarity.
Yes.
And then my recovery didn't stick. I took back my will and I did it my way, and the result was the same. But the difference was I was getting a solution. If we just step back and we do this, tough love thing, and when the pain is great enough, they'll reach for it. Reach for what?
Right.
They don't even know. If you're not giving them the solution and all they have is pain, they're going to end up dead before they figure out what's going on. So I can't say it enough. I know that I did a lot of things. I could have done a lot of things better as a parent, but if there's one thing I stand by, and I know I did it right and I would do it over again, is that I forced my son into recovery, a treatment center at the age of 15, against his will. I engaged the entities. I took out a PINS petition, which is like the best kept secret in all of Long Island.
But unfortunately, they're so not willingly given out.
Doesn't matter.
Right.
This is life and death,
But you
and
have
you
to
have to go fight
engage.
for it.
Yeah.
And I fought for it, and it was not easy, and I fought for it, and I got the PINS diversion for him, and they engaged him in recovery. They engaged him in a treatment process. So if your kid is under the age of 18 and you can engage them in a PINS petition and you can get the school involved, even under 16, the school will take out a petition. Over 16, the parent has to take out the petition. And
And
you
I
have to
was
go through
told
a process.
by the time we get that PINS petition in place, he'll be 18, so he's too old.
Yeah, I don't.
That
That
language needs to go away.
There
also,
are
we
other
need to
avenues
take
that you can go down then.
the handcuffs off parents being parents. Also, let's with And let's talk about this. Actually, if you have a young person that's struggling with substance use disorder, you better have a healthcare proxy that you can act if they are unable to act on their own. And also that gives you permission to be in treatment with them, so that you are a team moving forward. Enough with the secrets, because the person struggling is going to keep a lot of dirty little secrets from the family.
So we have to do what we can do to engage a young person in a treatment process of some sorts, because just standing back and thinking, well, when they're in enough pain, they're going to stop and they're going to come to us. It just doesn't work like that. That's not.
Well, that's the shame and stigma of the disease. No one ever. My son never woke up one day and said, I think I'll be a heroin addict. I think that's going to be my lifelong aspiration, and I'll end up dead and destroy my family. Said no one ever.
Even beyond shame and stigma, they might just not really understand what's wrong with them.
Correct.
They were just partying, and then next thing you know, this thing's got them by the throat, and they don't really know what to do or where to turn. And at least if you, like with my son, when I forced him in, I mom dated it, they call them. They mandated you mom dated it. His first 2 treatment centers, I went through legal channels to mom date him into treatment. And then he was equipped with the knowledge of what was wrong with him. The third time, then I had to step back. He was over 18. I had to step out of the way, and I had to let the pain and the consequences come. And when they did, guess what? He reached for his own treatment program. He said, okay, I understand what's going on here.
And that's the importance of the family component.
Exactly.
When the family is educated on substance use disorder and can create, not tough love, but create healthy boundaries.
Yes.
Healthy boundaries where the family, siblings, mom and dad, grandparents, whoever it is, can also maintain, their own sanity.
Yes.
That's what needs to be established, because the person struggling will wreak havoc in any way, shape, or form, because they want what they want when they want it.
Right, and then you give them the solutions.
Yes.
I mean, you give them
always
solutions.
solutions.
Yeah.
Well, because if you have a person that's experiencing pain and consequences as a result of their substance use disorder, and you're not giving them solutions, they're gonna get willing. We always say, well, pain is the thing that gets them willing. Yeah, pain will get you willing to do a lot of things that you weren't really willing to do before. They'll get you willing to steal and to live out in the streets, and you'll get willing to do a lot of things. But
and for young girls, prostitute themselves. So
so then
you
you've got
to.
And once that happens, once you have trauma on board, it's a whole nother ball game.
Yes.
Just sitting back and thinking that they're going to get sick and tired of being sick and tired, at that point, they probably don't even want help because they don't feel like they deserve it. At least that was my experience. Someone
I can't
said
believe
to me,
we're at the end of our hour, but I'm going to encourage everyone. A2R Magazine will have everything up on the website. We'll make sure that you know where it's being delivered, and so you can get a copy. There's also an online copy, right?
Yes.
There will be an online.
Also, again, I'm going to really ask, call all your Democratic Assembly people and make some noise. Tell them you want the bills that were introduced by the New York State Senate, supported by the New York State Assembly. This is no time for a bipartisan issue. This is life and death. Make it happen, and have a great weekend.